Welcome back to the Daily Rundown. I'm Dan Morfitts with Maddie Howard and Jacob Braden. It's now time for their Something to Say, as I give each of my guests a chance to rant and rave on a topic of their choosing. So firstly, Maddie, what is your Something to Say tonight?
Well, obviously, recently there's been alleged that Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were in an abusive marriage where he was abusive towards her. And as soon as I found that out, I just thought, I don't want to hear anyone's opinion on this, because I can predict what it's going to be. I can predict what the arguments are going to be, just among people I know generally, or on Facebook, because attitudes towards abusive relationships are, in general, kind of ill-informed. In schools, in sort of sex education, there's no focus on the likelihood of an abusive relationship, and sadly it's very likely for a lot of people. So when it's talked about in the media and the press, there's been so much bias, as much as it might be covert, so much bias against the alleged victim, and that is run of the mill, and that's usual, and it should not be the case at all, because it's actually true that most people do not lie about rape, domestic violence, issues that predominantly affect women. There's a UN statistic, it's a few years old now, but it's probably still true, that 1 in 3 women will be abused in some form in their lifetime. And that might be very heavy, but because it's true, it really needs to be talked about more, and people need to be made aware of it. So when somebody says that they've been in an abusive relationship and has photographic evidence and has, a diary of it and has witnesses, etc., to then say, oh, do I believe it? It's a bit ridiculous. You don't have to believe it. Your opinion is not the word here, They know, and the majority of abusers will be narcissistic personalities, and I would hazard a guess that the majority of those who would like to stay famous are probably narcissistic personalities, and you wouldn't necessarily think that you can predict who would be abusive behind closed doors.
I know you said at the start about there's a lack of education during sex education in schools. Yeah. Is sex education the right place for that education, or should it just be done in any form of relationship? That there shouldn't be abuse. It's not necessarily a facet of a sexual relationship, surely.
I was just thinking, because they talk about romantic relationships during those lessons, but yeah, sure, another subject.
I'm from a different era when it comes to sex education. I remember my teacher biting the hymn book, but that was when he was watching the video with us. But if you put an abusive relationship and try and educate somebody about abuse in a relationship during sex education, does that to some extent sort of normalise it and equates with it? An abusive relationship and an abuser should be seen as what they are, rather than in the context of what should be a loving relationship, surely?
Yeah, but if you're going to educate, you need to educate about more so, I think it should be the signs that you are in an abusive relationship. Most people don't know. They really just don't know. You're obviously lying to yourself. You wouldn't choose it. And it's not an action that you are making. It's something that is happening to you. It's oppression. I mean, I personally just think that oppression should be flagged up more generally during school and social issues. So whatever context that would be, and whatever lesson, that's fine. But it should be that you're told to look for signs of narcissism, signs of abuse from your partner, what's normal in a relationship, maybe in PSHCE. And to say that, if you're isolated and if you're demeaned, if you feel like you have to really please your partner all the time, etc., that is not normal, because emotional abuse is just as common, if not more so, and should be taken just as seriously as physical abuse. It shouldn't just be, oh, she was smiling, she looks happy. Well, she's a human being,
There has been a really, really good government campaign recently that highlights things in relationships that are not quite right, such as, can you send me some naked selfies, or if you get told that your hair isn't right, that is an abusive relationship. I think we probably need more than just a few videos on the TV that fill about
Yeah.
10 seconds. We actually need a concerted effort to change society, don't we? Rather than education, it's a society problem.
I think school and PHSE is the perfect place to start because it's tied into first sexual experiences, all of this amount of young women, young girls and young boys who feel pressurised to have sex at an early age when they're not ready, and not emotionally ready. You know, it's a perfect place to talk about it in the whole context of sex is part of a relationship, so is love, so is romance, so is treating each other with dignity and respect. Teaching them to recognise it, because then if they're in abusive family situations, they might feel more comfortable to report it to the right people, and maybe to, you know, support whichever family member's being abused, because it might be sibling abuse, it could be brother and sister, it could be mum and dad, it could be anybody. I think, you know, you've brought up a really important subject there, and I think it's really good that the younger the person is, the more aware of it they are to look out for it, because actually, you know what, sod you, my hair is perfect.
Yeah.
Do one, mate, you know, I'm not being abused by you. If you don't like my hair, I'm sorry, you either stay with me or you do one. You know, it's about empowering people to recognise it, because domestic abuse and domestic violence takes many forms and it affects everybody in society, whether you're gay or straight, whatever your ethnic origin is, however old you are, you could be in a domestic relationship that is abusive. And
with cases like this, the abused definitely needs help, but in some very, very extreme circumstances, and many just normal run-of-the-mill circumstances, the abuser needs some help as well.
Yeah.
And some almost self-recognition of what they're doing and why it's wrong. Maddie, thank you for your Something to Say tonight. A really, really interesting piece and something more for people to look into, whether it's attached to a celebrity story or actually happening right next door or even on your own doorstep. Thank you. Jacob, time for your Something to Say.
Right, okay, mine is a light-hearted one. I happened upon Chewbacca Mum last week, yes, and I didn't know what to think at first, and then I saw the video, and then I saw the reaction to it by the world, and I just thought, how amazing is it? You know, I don't feel she sat in her car and took that video with the intention of getting 20 million likes on YouTube or Facebook or wherever. She just wanted to do a fun thing to cheer people up and cheer herself up, and it took off amazingly for her. You know, she got J.J. Abrams and James Corden in the car, and she met Chewbacca, and she's gone off and she's got Mars.
Chewbacca?
Yeah, she's doing all these things. She's meeting all these people, and it's really taken off for her. And she just seemed as a really kind, loving, decent human being that shared joy in the world, you know. And I think with everything that's going on in the world, we need stuff like that to brighten our lives, to give us hope, and to say, look, you know what, there are decent people out there who aren't media whores. They're not there for the attention. They just want to make people laugh and smile. And I think good on her.
If you haven't seen it, please look on the internet for Chewbacca Mask Mom. It's amazing.
It is, yeah.
I avoided it for days because I just saw this picture of a woman behind a steering wheel in a car. I thought, I'm not clicking on that. And then my wife went, you've got to see this. And you're right, it's so full of joy and happiness and just unbridled
you laugh.
Kindness. It's amazing. Yeah. And once she starts laughing, you start laughing with her, and then it just becomes a giggle tsunami. Yeah. And it's lovely. It's gorgeous, and it's just this woman who buys a Chewbacca mask for herself, just so she doesn't have to give it to her kids. I think her name's Candace Payne.
Yes, it is. Yeah, she's got a very kind of, I hate to say it, but trailer park kind of name, you know, but. It's great. I think she kind of epitomises a certain type of person.
She's a proper soccer mom, isn't she? She's got like 3 kids.
Yeah.
They've got the big American SUV thing that just ferries the kids around. Looking at the story as well, she bought this mask from a place called Coles.
Yeah.
And she went from having 1,000 views, which she was shocked by, to 15,000 views. Yeah. She woke up the next morning, I think she had 1 million views. Yeah. And it's getting to about 500 million views at the moment. 500 bit, which is around the natural audience level for the Daily Rundown. Yeah. and the toy company that she
Yeah.
bought the mask from
Yeah.
then came round to her house,
Yeah.
not as a publicity thing, obviously, but just as a kind-hearted thing. They brought her even more Star Wars toys. Like you said, she's been on James Corden's massive show in America where she reenacts the whole thing, and she's becoming a really nice, like you said, a media celebrity of joy,
Yeah.
which is hard to find in this day and age of Katie Hopkins and lots of other people like them. Anybody that appears on Love Island or Big Brother who
and people
thinks,
who purposely do things to get that attention. It's just a natural thing that's happened, and a string of events, that propelled her to be so well loved. And because it could have got ignored, but the right things happened, and it's good because it's made a lot of people laugh and a lot of people happy. And if you can die doing that, then you've had a really successful life, as far as I can
and
see.
we're still talking about it now. It's about a week old, and in the world of internet memes and little viral videos that get sent around, a week is a long time.
It is.
They normally get pushed to one side after a day. But the fact that we're talking about this now, have you seen this? Have you just
I have, yeah.
taken in the joy of it all? I can't think of any other word apart from joy.
It is. It's
like eating a chocolate bar.
throughout the video.
She's made hundreds of millions of people laugh.
Yeah.
And have you seen have you seen the reverse video yet?
No.
Which is amazing. It's Chewbacca sat in a car
With a mask of
with a mask of her, and it just goes, and it's fantastic. So if you haven't watched it yet, that's your job for tonight. After the Daily Rundown finishes, go and look at the Chewbacca mask mom, Candace Payne, and then look at Chewbacca with the mom mask. It's absolutely, it just makes your heart flood with gladness. It's so nice.
Well, look at us, we're smiling away, beaming away, talking about it.
And she gives you goosebumps of what it's like to be a happy person.
Yes, yeah.
I can't believe we've made happiness on the Daily Rundown. This is normally miserable. No, this is energised. Right, we'll be back in a few minutes' time for the last bit of the last Daily Rundown of the week. So join us three. We'll be discussing some of the more less serious stories of the day. Don't go away.